Welcome those of you who are here right now. As in always webinar, we're going to give a little bit of time for those who are still trying to log in. And we appreciate you showing up on time, and we appreciate others just for showing up. And so thanks for your patience. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. It is 1 o'clock now, and that is the scheduled start time, but let's just have a couple more minutes for folks to join us. Appreciate you. Andrew, on screen, you just see the deck, or do you see our pictures?
No, I'm good. We see the deck. I see the deck right now, and then our mugs on the deck, so we're good.
Oh, just the mugs on the deck. Okay, so I don't know where the mugs.
I see both of our videos too. I'm guessing that's what everybody else sees. Maybe somebody can give us a thumbs up in the chat.
I sort of hope it doesn't block the screen, you know. I mean,
it should be good.
You're good looking. I'm kind of distractingly ugly, so.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. You know, I haven't heard that too many times, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I understand.
My mom's told me that. You know.
Right. That's fair. That's fair.
It's fair.
See, yeah, we only. So again, for those of you who just jumped in, we're just giving it a couple minutes here for people to log in, log on. You know? Seems to be a bit of a
2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes, we'll get started.
Yeah, I'll just give it one more minute. Those who come in after will just miss the delightful introduction slides. Watermelon monster.
Ooh, like watching the Mavs game tonight?
Say that again?
You watching Mavs game tonight? Oh, I don't know if you watch basketball, but I'm from Dallas, so obviously I've been really close to watching
keeping an eyeball on my Celtics too. So your Mavs got no chance, brother. So just
that's what I was wondering. I was about to say you're watching the series, right? Because we might have, you know, there's still a chance we could end up there, you know.
There is.
Yeah. It's not a huge chance.
I always root for my friends' teams until I'm facing them. So I'm actually on your side until we're facing them. Then it's over. All right, listen, I want to thank all of you for joining the webinar today. And it's 3 minutes past. I don't know what the protocol is, but what the heck? I was here on time, and so was Andrew. So we're going to get started. And quite frankly, these first couple of slides are just about us anyways. So welcome, and thanks for taking the time to come out today. I know y'all have busy schedules, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure this was worth your time. So first, let me introduce Andrew. Wait a minute, that's actually another slide. So let me just talk about what we're going to do today. The objectives today, okay, are to help you bridge the gap between your prospects and your solutions. And this is just one small part of a marketing sequence or a sales exercise, but it's become a very important one that has really evolved in Andrew and myself sphere over the last several months or years. In any case, we're going to talk about the right way to scrub your list and help you clearly define your ideal client so you can attract your ideal client.
Yep.
So with that, who's talking to you today? Whoops, I jumped too many here. First, I want to introduce Andrew first. I've known Andrew for several years. Andrew works for TriDigital and GlassHive, formerly known as Honey CRM, and we both live in the world of helping MSPs grow their business. And the things that I've learned from Andrew and the folks around him is phenomenal, and he has got some great insights. And actually, I'm kind of honored that he was willing to share his thoughts during this presentation. So thanks for joining us, Andrew. And if you want to add anything else about yourself, please do.
No, yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be on. And I need you to introduce me on all my meetings and everything I'm doing so that you can just hype me up like that, man. I need a hype man. But I'm Andrew. I'm the product director here at GlassHive, product team lead, and involved with partner, community, and community initiatives, as well as channel and marketing and sales initiatives, vendor and partner channel sales and marketing initiatives here at GlassHive.
Well, I want you to know that your mom called me before the introduction, but I was already in good shape. So, all right. So I'm Vernon Harrison. I'm the principal and the owner and CEO of CRO Leader. I'm a consultant. I wrote a book, the MSP Owners Manual. I'll talk about it a little bit. But I have, in fact, owned an MSP in the past and a VAR. We used to call them back in the days. I spent a lot of times in sales. I've led a lot of sales folks. And I've been doing sales and marketing coaching and training since 2013. And then as a result of that, I ended up writing a book. It's called the MSP Owners Manual. And the reason I wrote the book is I sat down and started documenting all the great things that I had discovered that are necessary to help MSPs grow. You're very technical folks. You're good at technical. You don't even like salespeople. They talk too much. They talk too fast. And so I put it in a book, and believe it or not, it's 50 chapters. Some of them are very, very short, but what I did is I broke it down into increments that could help you grow your business. And my goal is for all of you to get to the point where you're onboarding a new client every month. Of course, that starts with just getting your next one first, and we're going to help you out with a little bit of that right here today. So actually, Andrew, would you like to say anything about my book? But keep in mind how good my introduction is.
Right over that, you know, keep in mind how good my introduction is, of course. I've read Vernon's book. I actually love the way you set up your book, Vernon, because the way you broke it into small, bite-sized chunk chapters, you can go into it and kind of look at kind of what are you dealing with right now as an MSP, and just go to that chapter and pick up some knowledge right there. It all flows together well, but also if you need to just jump to something, I found that it's a nice little quick reference. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Well, thank you. My intent is to make it an owner's manual, and sometimes you go right to that section. You know, it's like when a new light lights up on your car dashboard, right? You just go right to that. You can't read that whole book. Okay, so let's get into it. You know, you're doing your marketing. You got a lot of names in your database, which is difficult to manage today with spam filters and things like that. But you got real excited because a lot of folks were, you know, opening up your emails. You had a lot of views. You're sending out all these names, but it isn't manifesting itself. It's not leading to ongoing communication or maybe any communication at all. And so this is something that happened to me. I was working for a client out of the Chicago area, had a phenomenal database, and I'll delve into that particular client's environment as we go through the call. And I was getting tremendous response, actually using Andrew's tool for the emailing campaigns and the content that they had built for us. It was great. Unfortunately, though, I wasn't getting anywhere. And so what I did was I decided to put the headset on myself. And not that I had any disrespect for the folks that I had working for me that were making the calls, but I absolutely had an inclination or a sense that there wasn't something right, and it wasn't them. And so when doing so, I was into the list, you know, I dedicated an entire day for it. And what I found out is when I was getting contact with people, or if I further investigated the contact content in the database, it was the wrong people. In fact, what we had done when we had pulled our list is we had used the word partner, thinking that, well, if we can't talk to the guy in charge, we should be able to talk to one of his partners. Some of you are probably already giggling because every lawyer in a law firm is a partner. Every financial investor in a financial firm is a partner. And so there were a variety of places where we were talking to those folks. And the irony is most of them either wanted to represent us or sell something to us. So they were only paying attention because they were trying to get to us. But it led to a bigger issue. As I started to scrub the list, it really didn't stop with just the title. Andrew, want to add to that?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, man, because I had the same experience where we had, it was a legal list. and we were working with a legal list, and it looked great. And then we started looking through it, and that title, is just very deceiving to them buying that list. So yeah, don't let that get you. It's as far as the rest of this goes, I know it sounds like you still got a little bit to add to this, but my things on this whole, like having 5,000 contacts in your database and that seeming like a really good thing. It does seem like a great thing, and you might have just spent maybe even thousands of dollars on this list. But the reason why this can be so detrimental is because even those list companies that you might have paid $2,000 for, that's actually not that much for a data list. Like a more quality data list with a few thousand contacts is more probably like above 10 grand, But it's just that the lists nowadays depreciate really fast, especially with COVID. So that's one thing. And we're dealing with a lot of factors here. We're not only dealing with having, like to have quality over quantity, we're also dealing with now, like, back in the good old days, whenever we used to be able to email, and this wasn't even that long ago, like 5-6 years ago, be able to get high rates on cold email campaigns. And nowadays, not only do you get lower rates because people just respond to these things differently, but also you got things working against you like spam filters, email servers, and so many other things that are just working against you to try to get into people's inboxes. So having quality, not only contacts, but then leading to quality conversations that lead you to having higher open rates and all that. It just really is a huge trickle effect, and it all starts with having quality from the beginning, in my opinion on this.
No, I think it's a great point, Andrew, because you're making a point too. We should remind everyone on this. This is not the silver bullet. This is just an intricate step amongst many. You do need a good marketing sequence, but when but you're right, and it's so funny. I love listening to you hear you say the good old days. He's talking last Tuesday. No,
yeah, it wasn't even that long ago when we used to be able to do that with a cold email list.
My good old days didn't even have email. Okay. Anyways,
Different definitions of good old days.
Let's move on for that before everybody jumps off the call. So what happened next was the reality check, and it does kind of segue into what Andrew was saying. So what I did when I dialed into that account's database is I found out that the database wasn't completely bad, but when you have, I don't know, 5,000 emails go out and you have 800 opens, where do you begin? But I was just so discouraged by the list. So what I went and did is I went out and used some success criteria, ideal client criteria, and I went and developed my own list of about 100 names. I'm sure I pulled some off the database that we were using, but I wanted to take 100 names, and I created a segment where I knew none of the names that were in the very same marketing tool that I was using, okay, the very same tool, changed nothing. I took 100 names of people who I knew would be good to do business with, or at least closer to what I was doing. I sent that list out, and then I picked up the headset and I dialed into that list, and I started setting up FMEs, first meetings ever, the very next week. And so, sales is always a numbers game, but the numbers don't have to be big. As a matter of fact, what you can do is, it's like a baseball player waiting for his pitch, right? Yeah. And so what we ended up doing after that, it was really just the beginning, is how to get our list down to not only a manageable quantity, but I started to think about, well, even amongst those 100, who's better than others? Andrew?
Yeah, this goes back to just starting with the quality, right? So it's okay to go for the numbers game as long as you start with a quality list. If you have your quality list, which I usually say have a concentrated focus, 250 to 500 contacts list, and if you start with that, then try to hit the numbers. Try to see if you can reach out to them and have as many touch points as possible with these contacts that you're trying to reach. But if you're just going for a numbers game with like 10,000 contacts, you might be reaching like each contact once every like 6 months because it takes you that long for your team to dial through it, then you can see how that might not be as efficient. It's just a lot different. And this is one of those things that like I hesitate to tell people it's not a numbers game anymore. Like, because a lot of people say it's not a numbers game anymore, and I think there's a lot of truth to that in some ways, and to a lot of these like kind of old school sales like stigmas that we're trying to just break, and that's one of them. Is just like it's a numbers game, and the reason why I don't ever say to people like forget about the numbers game is because then they think that they can do less activity. And it's very important to know that even with these quality contacts, you still have to hit a high quantity of activities naturally just to book meetings or anything, right? So
Yeah,
that's my view on that.
that's right. Because you got to. I mean, I guess we can't get away from a numbers game because let's face it, everybody in sales has a quota they got to hit, right? And
Right.
businesses to make profit. You know, if you're out there and you're an MSP or you're a sales professional watching this, you know, you have responsibilities and success that are based on numbers. I guess the whole point of this is about improving the batting average. Remember, this whole trek that I
Hmm.
went on started with just no success at all to being able to set up meetings in a few days when we hadn't set up any in weeks. By the way,
Hmm.
luck always has a good part of that. So this is why we came up with by saying, why is your prospect list mostly trash? Okay, I want to reveal that saying it's mostly trash was certainly a marketing ploy. We had to get your attention. I'm sure there's some people who didn't sign up because they don't think their marketing
But
list is mostly trash.
but there is truth to that
Yeah.
because your marketing list could be mostly trash. It's just that it came across really harsh, so that we could,
Oh
cause
yeah.
some ruckus, get some
Yeah.
people in here. But you know, there's a good chance it is mostly just. We won't call it something so harsh. It is not quality. It is not a quality list, right? There's a huge chance of that. And if I could start, Vern, and
Go ahead.
I want to let you add everything, but the very first thing that might not be so obvious on this for people um, is that, and a lot of people know this number, maybe some people don't, but your list depreciates about 20% every year, right? So now take something like COVID into account the last 2 or so years, and then think about how much that has made your list depreciate even more with all of these different roles being changed everywhere. So if you were not already keeping track of your list every year and getting all that 20% out that is no longer good possibly, and if you haven't done that in the past 2 years, then it might be even worse than it was before. You know what I mean? So I just want to start with that because that's something that I guess is not so obvious in relevant in today's. It's very relevant in today's time because of just what's happened with COVID. I think it's made that even more drastic. You know what I mean?
I agree. In fact, you know, I guess it's sort of easy to note that it's easy for time to pass and you not realize how old your list is, and that, you know, you
Yeah.
did a trade show or you did an event in, you know, 2014, and those names are still in your list, you know, and if you're not doing business with them by now, you know, it's on you. Right? Maybe you ought to get them out. So this is a quick checklist right here. This, if you can say yes to all of these questions, if you can, then, you know, maybe you don't need the rest of this. But the fact of the matter is, if you can say yes to all these questions and we continue, you're going to say, well, yeah, I already know those things. So here's what we did. What we did is, where I started in the beginning with what happened to me in Chicago is I said, okay, stop the, you know, what is the ideal client? So the first thing I did, who do I want to talk to, right? And clearly we had put partners in there because we feel like we need to talk to ownership. And I highly encourage that. We'll get into the criteria in a second. But there's more than that. There's
Yeah.
geography. Most MSPs want to be within 30 miles or an hour's drive of their office, you know, and things like that. And when I went into that list, because we'd used the term partners, we had companies that were headquartered in Chicago, and they had people all over the country. And so we were marketing to people in Memphis, Tennessee, and, you know, Savannah, Georgia, you know, that just were not good profiles. And silly us, because some of this stuff you can do with just a quick browse through. But it's more important, to Andrew's point, in this day and age, and since post-COVID, we've got to drill in deeper.
I really, really love this, Vernon. Sorry to cut you off, but I love what you've done here, and this is in your book too, because you're giving people a tool to give them a measuring stick or data in a way to make good decisions, right? It's not just based off of just some judgment call on the spot or on the fly. It's like you got numbers telling you what's quality and what's not. So I can't wait to get into this with people.
One of the, by the way, Andrew, one of the byproducts of this, I have found when working with my SDRs, sales development reps, whose goal is to set up meetings, I find I let them do some of this task. They must learn the ideal profile. They must learn it. They must know it. And I help them research it and score it, which we're going to get to next. And it creates such a greater degree of confidence in who they're calling, but more importantly, they realize who they are calling they can bring value to. Because why would your ideal client be somebody that you can improve the quality of their life or their environment? They literally get excited and bring a passion to the table they didn't have. So now I'm going to jump into what I consider some must-have data. And I'm going to deeper dive into each of these, and I'm going to trust that each of you can read. So I will pause or talk, but this is the 10 basic criteria that I put on my chart. And so, in fact, I'll flip it to Andrew, and it really starts with vertical, by the way. I'm sorry, I was going to flip it to Andrew, but I want to talk about vertical. You need to pick a lane. I was at an event the last couple of days, and I'm starting to hear more and more of this industry-wide. This is not to say that if somebody is nearby or within your sphere geographically or user count that you can't support them. But ultimately, when it comes to growing your business and wanting to build a database of prospects, I say you must have to focus on a vertical. And the reason for that is so that you can bring value and be a subject matter to the vertical. The rest is a little more connected into your abilities. Andrew, what do you think of the list?
Absolutely, man. And I think whenever we talked previously, you said, "Hey, Andrew, if you had something that you would like to add to like the score, just to qualifying a lead, what would you add?" And I love this list. The vertical is a huge one. That's I think that you should definitely have verticals, because then you know how to be relevant and understand the businesses that you're helping more than anyone, right? If you're just scattered everywhere, you might just kind of know these businesses. But if you are into, like, let's say if you just really indulge yourself in 3 verticals, then you will know those verticals at the back of your hand and specialize in those, and that can lead to really good things. So the thing that I would add to this is something that not necessarily everyone agrees with me on whenever I say this, but a website. Whenever I look at someone's website, as an MSP, even from a marketing perspective, we're looking at someone that we're wanting some marketing services to, but as an MSP, a website can tell you if a company really values technology, or if it's just something that is maybe more of it's just something they have to do, and they haven't updated their website since it looks like the 90s. A website is obviously very revealing of information, and if they have a good website, they put a lot of things on there that give you information even about the people within the company. You might even get pictures of the infrastructure in their office because they have their own pictures in there. Obviously, those are great things. But if they do not have a good website, that is part of what would deem their score for me. Obviously, it wouldn't determine everything for me, but if they don't have a good website, that gives me a good idea. It obviously can't be 100% truth every time on how they view technology, but it gives me a good idea on if they view technology as something valuable or not. If they have a good website, that's a really good indicator.
Oh man, that's interesting, because I'm out there all the time telling sales reps and SDRs to avoid potential clients that think technology is a necessary evil. And I think you're right, boy. That belongs on here. I'm not going to stop the webinar and go put it on, folks, but that belongs on here, because gauging your client's attitude towards technology, and what better way than the website? What a perfect point. Do they have a website because they have to, or do they have a website because they recognize the value this technology can bring? Can it address your questions as one of their clients right out of the gate? Man, that's a good one. That's a great one, and I apologize that it's not on here, and this is why I hang out with Andrew all the time. But I love that because, you know, when I'm trying to engage a client to help them grow their business and they hate sales, I say, look, man, we got to get past that. We got to, it's okay to hate salespeople, you know, I mean, or not like them. I wouldn't hate anybody, but you do have to start embrace this sales and marketing. And so, and I'm always leery of a client that can't get past that. And it's very difficult for an MSP who is managing clients who think their technology is a necessary evil over a value and a required asset to their success. That's a great one. I appreciate you throwing that in. All right.
Absolutely, man. These are all of the really good ones, and you don't got to go back to anything, but all those right there are obviously very important. You know, I wouldn't even say, I would have a hard time saying remove anything from there to make it 10. I would just, but you know, I understand wanting to make it consolidated too. But hey, man,
But you're making a good point though, okay? Because the folks that are listening into this, I would tell you that you may have something in your region, in your vertical, or what you're doing that belongs in there, something you want to know. And it certainly, you know, should at a minimum come out in your vetting process. Remember, this is about creating a list of prospects. And so if you have no Linux skills or no Mac skills, you know, you're going to want to put that on there, but since they're a smaller percentage of the environment, I don't necessarily put that on there. But I agree with Andrew. I do think you need to gauge an attitude towards technology because it's going to affect how you go. All right. So now you have an ICP score. What do you do? I mean, you have an ideal client profile. Okay, this is what my ideal quarterback, wife, right, client looks like, and it's perfect because they're the right size, they're close by, you know, I understand their industry and I can bring value to them. But you've got hundreds of these names, maybe thousands, but in what we're doing, when we get down to hundreds, okay, and this is where you take the 1,000, and this is how you get to the hundreds, because now what I say is you score it, okay? And why do you score it? Simply to show which ones are better than others. And by the way, the scoring is always evolving because the scoring has an effect on your research and your level of communication. So as you grow the score, you're more than likely to get to the all-important FME, first meeting ever. You can't grow your business, you can't sell your product if you're not talking to new people. And we consider over here at CRO Leader, we consider the FME to be the silver bullet. And it's the number one thing we list on our KPI of activity.
So important. Super important. Sometimes people don't give enough emphasis on the first meeting ever. They think that it's more of a test. You should know enough already when you're going to the first meeting to know if this is going to be a client that you want to work with or not. At least have a good idea, right? If you're going to the first meeting and still find out these things, that's a recipe for trouble, and you might not get that second meeting, even if you find out they're an amazing client. You want to come in there very, very prepared and with the mentality that you're pretty much going to get that second meeting. You know, that's how prepared you should feel. You know,
or it's not a waste of your time. Time is valuable,
absolutely.
right? You want to bring in a new client every month. You can't be hanging out with people that aren't going to be your client. All right, so here's what we've developed. We used a very cutting edge tool here. For those who haven't heard of it, it's called Excel. And what I've done is I've taken the 10 things that I've listed on the left, which I'm actually going to modify. In fact, I'm already decided I'm going to use merge full-time and IT employees and just make that one category and have a line in there on valuing technology. But here's how it is built today, and we've had a tremendous amount of success with several MSPs. I recently had an SDR join my team who I had worked with in the past, who came over, and she was like, what am I doing, Vernon? Why am I doing this? And I said, look, we're going to score these because we record these scores in our CRM in GlassHive. And she was amazed when she went through there, not only how much junk or trash was in there, okay, but more importantly, it was really cool. She called me up one day and she goes, you know, we got 80% response. We got 80% attending our webinar. The results changed dramatically just by talking to the people we should be, the people they should be interested in. So what we do is we list the verticals down the left and we score them 1 to 4. You got to have I don't like 1 to 10. It's too convoluted, okay? Just 4 categories, less is more. I like to keep it at 10. I've seen some people get carried away and stretch it out to 20. I think it gets a little too convoluted at that point. And honestly, if anything, you could make it smaller, but I kind of like the round numbers. And so what I've done is what you can see here is I've got a score by the highlighted areas by knowing the stuff that's highlighted in yellow. I got a score of 29. This is a pretty good prospect for me. And so the initial stuff is very easy to determine yourself. The first 3 can absolutely be researched. So why aren't you doing it? Okay. In fact, the first 4 can be researched. I take that back. All right. Make sure you're within your vertical, that they got a user account that you can support. A Fortune 1000 company isn't likely to hire the MSPs that are on this call. No offense intended. And for those of you who are on the call, you know how difficult it is to manage some of your 5 to 10 user accounts. They're not sophisticated with technology, and then again, in many cases, they just see it as something they have to keep spending money on, like you, okay, spending money on you. You know, imagine if all of your clients were in 15 minutes of your office, how well you could take care of them, right? And you know, if they were just 5 miles away, unless you're in New York City, you know, that's difficult to do, but there is a bar where the quality of your service, your productivity, your profitability is affected by distance. And at the end of the day, you want to talk to the person who cares and is making the decision. So this is why I see these titles as key. So what do you got to say about these first 4, Andrew?
Well, you know, this is, again, going back to why this is such a great tool for people is like the distance one, for example. That one can be very determining on how much hours you're paying your tech or something, right? To drive somewhere and take care of a job, or it can just, like you said, just give better quality service to your clients, give you more leverage to be able to just be more in touch with your clients, right? So being able to have a score like this that keeps you only in front of the people that are the most quality that fit all these criteria for you, that's why it's so big, right? Because if these start getting too far to the left, you know you're not going to spend your time on them, and that's good. You're going to throw them out, or they might not. You might even completely delete them from your CRM. That's probably what we'd recommend to do, right? So you delete them, or you store them somewhere where you're not going to see them, and you focus on what matters, right? The quality.
Right,
for
right.
sure.
Yeah, you know, you're right. That's you know, that's a question I often get. Do I delete them? I think in some cases you have to. Other cases, I like to sort of blackball them. So when they end up on my list again, I can see I did my research. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to market to them. I don't want to use my time and energy and money to market to them. And I also put those that don't cross 20, I actually put them in a bucket so that maybe some of the research would cause their score to rise and end up actually being a more ideal client when I discover stuff. So the next 3 things I find very important, and certainly has a lot to do with my strategy for helping MSPs bring in new clients. And that is, you know, their existing IT and whether they use an MSP today. And if you look at has an MSP today, and it says yes, I give it a 4. Now, I can't tell you how many sales professionals, regrettably, by the way, will come to me when reporting to me and say, oh, yeah, Vernon, I already went in there and they've got an MSP and they really like them. And of course,
Oh no! Oh, you ripped them a new one. I already know. That was bad. You can't say that to Vernon.
Actually, I'm very kind, Andrew. I actually am.
I know. I'm just.
I love doing this. This is what I say because you know they're telling me why there's nothing else to do, without saying there's nothing else to do. And I always say to them, "That's awesome. So what's your next step?"
Even better response, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. And by the way, they do recognize later that I'm kind of raking them over the coals because mostly, what do you mean my next step? They already got an MSP. I said, okay, hang on a second. I love this one because I'll tell you why. When somebody already has an MSP, they are already buying what you are selling. Okay. And so they've already established that an MSP has a value. Remember earlier, Andrew was talking about, do they value technology? They're already telling you they value MSPs, in some way or another. So if you're better, okay, closer, more aligned with their vertical, this is a deal you can win, as opposed to going in there and trying to convince them that their IT staff is not adequate, or they got to stop calling somebody every time something breaks. That's a different challenge in itself, one that you should not turn away from. But I will tell you, I teach my sales representatives, my SDRs, my MSPs under my umbrella to run towards anybody who has an MSP today.
Yep, and Vern, with that, I couldn't agree more, man. It is usually looked at the other way. Oh, they have an MSP, delete them, get them off the list. No, this is actually not a bad thing. And if they have an MSP, like you said, that means that they're willing to buy your services. You know what you should do with them is put them on a list to follow up with them in 6 months and see if they're still happy with their MSP. That's what you should do, because these deals have a long sales cycle anyways.
Well, and this one is about scoring and cleaning up your list, but one of my favorite things is to have the SDR say, hey, that's great. Don't want to fix what's not broken. What's your favorite thing about them? And then after they answer that, ask them, what do they not do that you wish they did? Right? Maybe they'd like to get their VoIP from you too, and you don't do VoIP. And so from that, you can find chinks in the armor. At the end of the day, if they've got a great MSP who's doing a great job, you're not going to get there anyways. So simultaneously, you're finding out not where time. Now, by the way, this section of the scoring is not something that you can typically research on the internet. And so this is a great opportunity for SDRs to start building rapport and nurture accounts by calling in and just trying to get the information out of them. And there's different scripts and ways to do that. Okay, so with that, let's jump into the next section, which I do think has a lot more to do with call it the prospecting activity. Are they aware of you? Because once they're aware of you, and by the way, all of this is around the fact that we're going for the first meeting ever. So when I say ongoing communication, in this context, I haven't met with them yet. Once I have met with them, they are no longer a prospect, they are an opportunity. So into the guise of prospecting, yeah, I can call them up. They told me they have an MSP. They told me 12 people work there, blah, blah, blah. I've got regular communication. And it's not a bad thing if they're not aware of you, because this is an opportunity. And in fact, I'm sure Andrew's itching, because their company is all about taking people who never heard of you and making sure they hear of you. So actually, I'm just going to stop now. Andrew, you run with that one.
Well, on just these last three, I think they kind of all work together. I will say that I think from the very beginning, just going back to the quality thing, don't mean to just keep harping on why just at the very beginning quality is important, but just keep considering it. Once you reach out to these contacts, you did all this hard work, you put in the time to make sure you have a quality list. The last thing you want to do now is put unquality content in front of them. And then if you're going to be keeping ongoing communication with them, that doesn't necessarily even mean also just, hey, are you ready to talk now? Are you adding value every time you're communicating with them? Also, are you educating them whenever you're communicating with them? And are you building more credibility, right? So this all comes into effect for the last three for me. They kind of all intertwine together, because usually if you're connected with them on LinkedIn, or imagine you're looking to reach out to them on LinkedIn if you're considering this part of the score. And then, yeah, that's really the most important thing to consider, at least whenever starting this and just keeping it going.
I had an MSP do a webinar focusing on the healthcare vertical. They did a webinar on helping you see more patients per hour. And that's what the webinar was on. And what they did during that webinar, they talked about the importance of automated voicemail, electronic interaction, pre-registering, your ability. They talked about using technology well beyond, by the way, services that they offered, okay, well beyond. They talked about using appoint reminder tools and applications. And it was one of the most attended webinars, the highest percentage they had ever did. And they had they had taken doctors' offices and medical practices that were not even, had no idea who they were or what they did, and they brought them to the table because they brought them value in that webinar, in their messaging. And they even created a section of their website that ended up being a page on their website where medical practices could go and get advice on how to improve their practice. Now, if some other MSP is delivering that kind of messaging to your client, you better start planning a replacement strategy. Okay, contact data is also something that's very important, okay, because it improves the quality of communication you have and can facilitate the ongoing communication. Not a lot needs to be said there. I do want to pontificate a little bit about LinkedIn. This is not the LinkedIn webinar either. LinkedIn is such an important strategy about what you're doing today. In fact, even earlier when Andrew was talking about websites, you know, there's a chapter in my book on websites, and it does not tell you how to build a good website, just the opposite. As a matter of fact, it says, look, and we're good at helping people with their websites, the right messaging, and we even have people on staff that can go in and work with your tools. But at the end of the day, there are people who make websites and who can do a way better job than we are. But this is what it does say in the book. Are you ready? If your website sucks, so do you, because that's the impression you're parlaying. And so I was telling Andrew earlier that sometimes I go to visit a client for the first time and I'm extremely disappointed in their facilities and their team, because their website, I thought I was going to be valet parked and was wondering what floor I was going to meet on, you know, because their website was so phenomenal. Worse though is one time I visited a client who felt their website was a necessary evil, where it didn't necessarily pass that Lisbeth test too, Andrew, because they had an amazing knock and they had it behind glass. And I'm like, why aren't we showing videos of this, if not at least pictures on your website? These are your people. These are not stock images. And
right.
They had an incredible technical staff and some crazy hand-on skills. They had a warehousing area where, you know, where they can burn in laptops for, you know, 1 person to 50 people overnight, and just, you know, and their website, you know, it was disappointing to say the least. But yeah, the LinkedIn connection is the same way. In today's day and age, particularly with LinkedIn, as you start to prospect, they're going to go to your LinkedIn, okay? And one of the things that your first connection LinkedIn can do is it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. For example, if your vertical, as indicated in this chart, is manufacturing, and throw in healthcare if you want, and somebody, as the owner of that company, goes in and takes a look at the owner of that company and realizes, man, they're connected with all my other manufacturing buddies and every medical practice in the thing. It's by default an endorsement. And the ability to use the LinkedIn tools changes dramatically when it's a first connection. It allows full communication and full access without buying special tools. Again, this is not the LinkedIn tool, but LinkedIn is so important that I give a first connection a 4. And I give a second connection a 3, because if they're your second connection and they're in the vertical, they're typically just an invite away from being a 1. And to that point, you can always be improving someone's score. In that, Andrew?
Yep.
Now,
go
ahead.
Sorry, you said you have the other day.
All right. So actually, I'm going to give the next slide to Andrew, but I use GlassHive for my own tool. And I want you to know that, and this is, you know, what a properly scrubbed and scored contact means to me. I go into my CRM every morning. I only have so much time every day. So many of you MSPs that are trying to go next level are giving a percentage of time of this. And I literally sort them by their score. Their score improves with this tool based on their activity in my notes. I try to improve their score, and I make sure that I do not neglect my highest score people. And in the end, by the way, I have much greater results. Andrew, properly scrub contacts. It's all yours.
You know, these are two contacts, example contacts from GlassHive. And don't worry, guys, I'm not about to try to sell your GlassHive here. That's what we're here for today. We're here to talk about how to help you improve your contact quality, your list quality. And this is what two properly scrubbed contacts look like inside of GlassHive. And you can see this is basically like probably better than their LinkedIn profile in some cases. You know, I can see their photo. I have access to their LinkedIn profile from there, the status that they're in, all their contact information. It's just everything that I would need for prospecting purposes I have here. And then of course you can even dive deeper than that if you needed to, but this is just at a high level what the scrub contacts looks like. Also, with something we haven't even talked about today, which is just keeping a quality updated CRM with all the contact communication actually going in there and not just, you know, getting updated every now and then. So that's a whole different subject on its own. But this is what a properly scrubbed contact might look like. Just depends on what type of CRM you have. But the photo is one that a lot of people, like, whenever like I'm training someone on how to scrub contacts, they're like, is it really necessary to have a photo? And the way that you got to look at it, the way that I look at it at least, is that you're building a relationship with someone, right? That's what you're going for. You're building a relationship with someone, and you want to start feeling that connection, and you want them to start feeling that connection with you. But you can help yourself by starting to kind of feel that connection with them. And if you were able to see what someone looks like, maybe they have a friendly face or a smile or something, you have some things in common with them because you research them and you see that you have things that are relevant to each other just on a personal level. These things can make a huge difference in your confidence, even when you're cold calling, when you're reaching out to people, and just help you have better conversations. So that's why properly scrubbed contacts are so important in the gist.
You know, I'm kind of smiling because I'm listening. Now I'm going to use an expression you did. In the old days, and trust me, these were the old days. I think Andrew was still in grade school. You know, we used to pick up the phone and we would do all of this on the fly because we didn't have tools like this. We didn't have a place where we could see all these things in one pane of glass. By the way, Andrew, we keep our scoring for each prospect in a notes section. I mean, we score them in the score where it says client score, but we keep it in a notes pad. And you know, they say a lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to. The same holds true in sales. And so having all these answers, I could call this guy up, Richard or Francisco, and say, hey man, did you go to Middlebury College in Vermont? You know, and I know the answer. The answer is like, yeah, dude, did you? You know, right? Hey, I saw you used to work for IBM. How did you survive that? Well, I loved it, you know, and you know, and just there's a bunch of ways to
Great
go.
city. No, I often think that I think Vernon, you know, we've probably had training from some of the same people even at some points, just because we know some of the same people. But something that I've always been told as an example is like, look at lawyers. They're professionally paid. Like whenever you go to a lawyer, you don't haggle with them, right? So this is one of the reasons. Like they have a price, an hourly price or whatever type of price they have, and that's what you're paying. And it's quality because you're paying for professional services that they've spent years, you know, making their services perfect fit for your company, right? So in other words, you just gotta make sure that whenever you're doing this and you got these, I'm so sorry. Hold on.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. Actually, it's funny. I do have to contradict you on one thing you said. Everything's negotiable. Doesn't mean you'll get anywhere, but you know, I'll be at a retail counter and say, is there a trade discount? And they'll be like, what? What trade? I'll be at Walmart, you know. Hey, any of this stuff qualify for a senior discount? Because I'll go get my mother, because I don't. But anyways, all right. So from trash to treasure, I just want to do a recap. First off, create a nice, create an ideal client profile, document it, know what it is, and make sure everyone in your company knows what it is. Get your SDRs and your sales professionals to score them. Market to those that are high enough, and only market to those that are high enough. And always, daily, politely, persistently, without being annoying, work on the top 20%. You will get, not only will you get more first meetings ever out of it, the quality of them will improve dramatically, and you'll start to enjoy what's happening there. We've kind of gone a little long here. We promised this would only be 45 minutes, but are there any questions out there? Abby, did anyone type in a question? Does somebody want to chime in? I don't know how the tool works. I leave that up to the professionals. But are there any questions pending out there?
And sorry, Vern, while we're sitting here, these last like 2 minutes while I was talking, it started just cutting out and froze. I was like, did I drop off?
No,
You can
you
hear me
did great.
fine, right?
I heard everything you said, or at least I think I did. None of your sentences was more incoherent than you normally are. So I don't think.
I was trying to figure out if I was like actually dropped off or not. I was like, wait, is this still on? But anyways, man, glad you can still hear me. Do we still have any attendees on? Looks like we still got a few.
I do
Any
see
questions?
one question. This somebody asked if this is being recorded. Yes, it is. This is 2022, and you'll all be given access to the recording. By the way, I do want to say one more thing about my book, which is available on Amazon, and we're going to discount it on Amazon for the next 3 or 4 days for those of you who don't have a copy and have an MSP and would like to get that owner's manual. Keep it on the corner of the desk. And if you have the owner's manual, you can call me anytime and ask me to explain it clearly or tell me where I'm wrong. In fact, if you correct me, you'll be in the next version of the book when I put it in right. All right. So yes, it's being recorded. We'll get that out to you. Andrew, thank you for taking your time. We do a series of webinars. We hope that we're bringing good thought leadership and ways to help you grow your businesses that you don't have today. And so please join us regularly, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Vern. Thanks for having me on. Thank you, Abby, for putting this together. Very beautiful slides. And thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll see you later.